considered trying to replace Hillary Clinton with then Vice President Joe Biden as the party's nominee just weeks before Election Day. The Washington Post reported over the weekend that Brazil considered this move after Clinton's fainting spell at a September 11th memorial service. And here to talk more about this are Nomiki Konst, Michael Starr Hopkins, and Liz Smith. Nomiki is a CBSN political contributor and a Democratic strategist. We've spoken with you a lot this time. And Michael is also a Democratic strategist and contributor for The Hill, and Liz is a Democratic strategist and Martin O'Malley's former deputy campaign manager. So thanks to the three of you for visiting here and sort of giving us all of your expertise. Let's go ahead and talk about this. This was a complete bombshell that was dropped last week, and then she said that, people were basically saying that it was rigged. Then she sort of walked back on that and said there was no evidence of rigging. So the question is, what's your take now that it's been nearly a year since Election Day and this bombshell has been released?
Well, look, Justice Hillary Clinton did recently. Donna Brazile now is trying to tell her side of the story, and I think she has the right to do that. Personally, I don't think folks like Nomiki and I are particularly surprised by what she's saying there. I wouldn't use the term rigged. I think that's a little bit strong, but we knew at the time, we knew in 2015, we knew in 2016 that the DNC was putting its thumb on the scale for the Clinton campaign and coordinating in ways that were inappropriate and unfair to the other candidates.
But would that be rigged? So rigging?
No. Rigging has sort of a more nefarious meaning to me. Again, I think that they gave unfair advantages to them, but it wasn't like they were going out and messing with voting machines or anything like that. They were just making sure that that the Clinton campaign could determine the debate schedule and have debates on during holidays and on weekend nights and during big football games that no one would watch. And they were working with the Clinton campaign on some of these staffing decisions and things like that. That is putting their thumb on the scale. It's a little different from rigging.
So no evidence of physical rigging or anything like that, but what about influence, Mark?
I think that when it comes to the Donna Brazile, we can say bombshell. I think she threw a political grenade and then tried to put the pin back in.
That's a good way of saying it.
After the damage is done, right?
The damage is done. There wasn't rigging. Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton both signed the same agreement initially, and the DNC was broke. The DNC needed money. They needed new people in there, and I think that Hillary Clinton, what she did, we could talk about whether there are ethical problems in the DNC, but there was definitely nothing going on that was illegal, nothing that was going on that was, in any way manipulating the outcome of it. That's the final outcome. And I think that when Donna Brazile made those comments, it reopened old wounds that the DNC is really trying to close so that we can come together and figure out what our real message is going to be. I mean, we need a message, and I think that's the big problem right now. We're focused on this again.
So, Nomiki, should we be surprised by any of the excerpts that's coming out?
I mean, I haven't read the entire book, but, I agree with both of you very much so. But I will say that this is a much bigger issue. It's not just about a message. I'm on this Reform Commission for the Democratic Party, which is set and tasked with reforming the Democratic Party. And that is something that Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders agreed to after the primary because both parties realized that the primary process was problematic. Meaning, they may not have said rigged. Secretary Clinton may not have said rigged, but she realized it was a problem. I don't think that Secretary Clinton, I'm gonna throw them a bone here. I don't think Secretary Clinton wanted to deal with a broke Democratic Party. Let's just be fair. The Democratic Party is still broke. They only have $7 million cash on hand. They were in debt after the presidential race. So while they both were given these joint fundraising agreements, it's really wonky. They weren't the same agreements. Bernie Sanders had to pay $250,000 for a voting file. Secretary Clinton didn't do that. Bernie Sanders wasn't given the opportunity to choose staffing. Secretary Clinton got that. He also said he would go out there and fundraise. The DNC never called them back. They went through a lot of problems in terms of very simple, fair primary process. And I think that's essentially the taste that's left in the mouth for so many voters, including Secretary Clinton's voters, is that it just seemed, optics-wise, that it was not a fair process. It's still not a fair process. I'm hoping that Tom Perez, the chairman, supports the efforts that come out of the Unity Reform Commission because it's much deeper than primary schedule. It also has to deal with finances.
You know what? Actually, speaking of Tom Perez, because you mentioned the name, so we want to talk about him. The current DNC chair said in a blog post over the weekend, quote, the new DNC under my leadership is committed to the task of making sure that our 2020 nominating process will be unquestionably fair and transparent. So, Nomiki, you're on the DNC Unity Reform Commission. What did you make of Perez's plans to increase transparency?
Well, I don't think he has to wait for the Reform Commission to be more transparent. You know, he could show the budget now. Nobody on the executive committee of the Democratic National Committee has ever seen the budget. They don't know where we basically burned $1 billion. State parties, which we learned during the DNC chairs race, which Liz was a part of, state parties have very little money, so they can't recruit candidates to win back 1,100 seats. The Democratic Party is at its weakest point since 1929, and Chairman Perez really has to go above and beyond because it was a contested race. He really does have to prove that it's transparent. He should be showing the finances, getting rid of some of these consultants that are just making money off of nothing right now, supporting state parties, and welcoming new members. And we haven't seen a lot of evidence of that yet.
But the fact that he reached out to people like you, it shows that he is committed to bringing in diverse voices.
He didn't reach out to me. But was appointed by Bernie Sanders.
Yes. But, you know, the fact that they do have a diverse group of people from across the Democratic Party on this commission is a good sign. I think we got to give him a little bit of time. And look, if there's any similar lining to this stuff that came out in Brazil's book, it's that the Democratic Party is going to be so hyper vigilant about this going forward and about avoiding any appearance of impropriety in the presidential nominating process.
So it could be a good thing.
Yeah.
I think it will be, but I think that it shows that the DNC has become such an insiders group.
Yeah.
Everyone, it's become an echo chamber, and if you don't agree with almost everything being said inside the DNC, there's not really a place for you. And I experienced that on the Clinton campaign in a lot of instances where, if I had a moderate opinion on some things that was a little more moderate than maybe people on the campaign, that was seen as like a negative thing, not being loyal. And I think that was a big mistake on the part of the campaign. And I think that you isolate people and you really push them away from the party when you start doing that.
Yeah, you want to hear different opinions coming from everywhere. I want to get this in real quick. Do you guys think this news, of course, is complicating the Democratic race in Virginia, especially for the governor's race?
No, and I don't at all. I worked on the Virginia governor's race in 2009. I've done a lot of work with Terry McAuliffe there, who's a current governor. Today, I was chatting with people, both Republicans and Democrats, and no one is saying that anyone is talking about this. This is an inside the political bubble conversation. Now, all that being said, that is going to be one heck of a dogfight tomorrow. If there's one thing we've learned about Virginia gov races is that Republicans turn out much more reliably than Democrats do. And in 2013, when Terry McAuliffe went into Election Day with a 7-point advantage, he only won by 2.5 points. Right now, the polling average shows that Ralph Northam is only up by 2.2 points. So that race is going to be, tight as a tick. And it is very crucial.
I think it will suppress turnout, though. I think there are going to be people who see it and just say, this is more of the same. This is more of the DNC not having their act together. And so I think that there are going to be people who were on the fence who maybe wouldn't have been that likely to vote, but were on the fence about it and would have supported him, will now say, I'm just going to stay home on this one.
We got 60 seconds. What happens if he doesn't win?
I think fundamentally this is about turning people out to vote, and it's really what lost us the election the last 10 years, 1,100 seats. It has to do with the fundamentals of campaigning. You've got to invest on the ground game. You can't message from the sky, and that's basically what the Democrats have been doing, is spending a lot of money on messages. So bad news, I don't think will affect the underground game. It's about being invested in those communities all year round.
All right, quickly.
Yeah, I think this is. I hope we win this, but if we don't, I think it's gonna be trouble for Democrats for a while. I think the narrative's gonna set.
It's about turning people out and not just relying on anti-Trump fervor to carry us over the finish line.
100%.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank
Wish
you.
I could talk to you all for the rest of the night. We'll keep doing it for years and years. All right, thanks, guys. Nomiki Konst, Michael Starr Hopkins, and Liz Smith. Again, thank you for coming.
Thank you.